Great. So let's get into the Auditor General's report. Okay, the report's on the accounts of Ghana, but for us, the most important thing today is on the account of public corporations, boards, and institutions. So that's the report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of Ghana, public boards, corporations, and other statutory institutions for the period ended 31st December 2022. Now, before we get into some of the specifics, before getting onto the phone line, according to the Auditor General, now let me share with you the total irregularities for the period, and this is the summary. Total irregularities amount to 15 billion, 59 million, 441,805 cedis, 85 pesos. I'll take it again. 15 billion. Note. 15 billion Ghana cedis. 59 million, 441,805 cedis, 85 pesos. Now, this is the breakdown. Outstanding debt and loans recoverable amounts to 99.37%. That is a total of 14 billion 964 million 300,230 Ghana cedis. Now, what the Auditor General is telling us is that these are amounts that we can easily recover. Okay, these are loans that we can recover, or these are debts owed these institutions or public corporations that they can easily recover. We'll give you a breakdown. Then you have cash irregularities totaling 23,513,599. There's payroll irregularities totaling 11,486,154 cedis. But that's not all. You also have procurement irregularities. And that amounts to 42,710,320.
The highest, actually.
No surprise there.
Then you have tax irregularities amounting to 12,856,588. And finally, contract irregularities amounting to 4,574,904 Ghana cedis. If you were to do a trend analysis, which the Auditor General does from 2018 to 2022, in 2018 it was 3 billion, it moved to 5 billion in 2019, then it increased to 12 billion in 2020. Okay, 12 billion in 2020, and then in 2021 it increases to 17 billion before reducing to 15 billion in 2022. The critical question is, where are these coming from? How much of it can we recover? The Auditor General says we can recover some 15 billion, 12,156,571, while some 47,285,234 are what the Auditor General describes as administrative.
Okay.
So let's get into the details now.
All right. Now, if you think about it, what the Auditor General is telling us is that about 99.37% of all these irregularities are recoverable. They can be recovered. Almost all of it, 99.37%. But it is the remaining, point, whatever percentage. That is where the big questions come. And as Winston explained, these other irregularities, the ones that are not recoverable, they fall into the categories of cash irregularities, payroll irregularities, procurement irregularities, tax irregularities, and contract irregularities. Last year there was another category, stores irregularities, but this year we recorded no stores irregularities. Okay, so let's take the cash irregularities. According to the Auditor General, there was a total of 23.5 million Ghana cedis worth of cash irregularities. Now, out of that 23.5 million, which, is basically misapplication, unauthenticated and unauthorized payments, board allowances, and, all sorts of things that were paid without ministerial approval. Out of that amount of 23.5 million, 14.47 million cedis of it was unrecovered staff advances paid by the Ghana Water Company. Okay, so they gave staff advances to the tune of 14.47 million Ghana cedis and didn't recover them. Okay, why is the first question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that is a huge chunk of the total cash irregularities recorded by the Auditor General, coming from Ghana Water Company alone. Let's talk about payroll. The total payroll irregularities was 11.48 million Ghana cedis. 6.48 million Ghana cedis of it was done by Maslock. Payroll irregularities. Okay, so unearned salaries, or paying SNIT contributions not be paid into the right accounts, those sort of things. 6.48 million cedis worth of it was done by Maslock. Second place goes to Volta Star Textiles. They were found to have committed 3.41 million cedis worth of payroll irregularities.
Could you let me just do this? Since you're talking about Volta Star Textiles, for those who may not be aware, that's drop-on textiles. So it was known as drop-on textiles, and then changed to Volta Star Textiles. So that's it. Yeah.
Okay. And Maslock and Japan or Volta Star Textiles, all of these irregularities are in the area of SNIT contributions. Okay. All right. Let's talk about procurement irregularities. As you said, that's the highest amount, 42.71 million Ghana cedis. Okay. Now here, there is one big culprit responsible for 37.68 million Ghana cedis worth of the 42.71 million procurement irregularities. And that is the National Youth Authority. Now, what the Auditor General is saying is that in their project to build youth resource centers, they did some variations to the contract worth 37.68 million Ghana cedis. But they did these variations without authorization, without going through the proper channels. Okay. And these are not recoverable. 37.68 million Ghana cedis. Next is tax irregularities. 12.856 million Ghana cedis in total of tax irregularities. And we can pick out three big culprits, if you will, for want of a better word. 6.255 million of it by Maslock again. Okay, so issues with SNIT, issues with tax. 3.456 million by Japan Textiles, Volta Star Textiles, again making another appearance. The third place goes to ECG, who apparently have 1.804 million cedis worth of tax irregularities. Finally, contract irregularities, and here the amount is 4.574 million Ghana cedis. 3.797 million Ghana cedis of that was committed by Volta Star Textiles. So if this was the Ghana Music Awards, we know who would be winning Artist of the Year.
Exactly. And Kojo, talking about that, I just want to touch on, something that, struck me. So I look at the Public Procurement Authority, for instance, and we're told that one, Madam Bampo, who was initially employed on a contract basis, continued to receive double salary. Double salary as a contract staff and as a permanent staff, which led to an overpayment of 66,600. And they say they recommend that management should ensure the stoppage of the contract salary payment and the amount recovered from her.
Right.
Why is the Auditor General not disallowing that expenditure and surcharging whoever, supervise its payment, for instance? If recoveries are not made, you must actually make sure that you surcharge the person so payments are made. Now, I want us to go to the National Lottery Authority, just by way of touching on a few things. Because the Auditor General says they note that the authority could not access its investment funds, totaling some 2.5 million Ghana cedis from 3 financial institutions, and they recommend the management should urgently pursue the recovery of the investments from the receiver of these financial institutions. Okay. Then also, they talk about the fact that they noted that Nsano Ghana Limited, a subsidiary company of Unibank Ghana Limited, continued the collection of Lotto proceeds without transferring the monies into the authority's accounts. So this entity is collecting the proceeds from Lotto and is not transferring it into the National Lottery Authority's account. And they are recommending that management investigate issues surrounding the contract with the defunct Unibank and reconcile all funds collected by Nsano through the short codes 924 on behalf of Unibank and recover all funds from Unibank and Nsano. But there's one also, okay, and I'm sure for many of you who would remember our hotline documentary investigations on these NESGO equipment, the POS machines. It says, we noted that the authority purchased NESGO POS machines at a cost of approximately 20.4 million Ghana cedis in 2019 using the single source procurement method under the criteria of urgency. However, the machines were still kept in stock as of the date of audit. Now, this is not the 4 that have been recently launched. These are POS devices, and it was supposed to be utilized by these kiosks that have been procured by the National Lottery Authority. 20.4 million. Nothing has been done.
Is this the item that was purchased because they said it was urgent, so it was a single
Yes,
source?
they said it was urgent, so it was a single source. But in 2020, Joy News had a hotline documentary on that, where, at the time we were exposed that if you were to go to the market to purchase it, the amount that the NLA bought it was very high compared to the market prices. But one thing that is also, got my attention, and the Auditor General makes reference to intergovernmental debts. Now listen to this. It says, we noted that ECG owes the Bui Power Authority 509,847,749 dollars out of the total debt figure of 515 million. So debts owed Bui Power Authority amount to 515 million, of which ECG owes 509 million. And they are recommending that the management should liaise with the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Energy, and management of ECG to ensure the allocations from the cash waterfall arrangements cover a significant portion of the total current invoices raised to prevent further accumulation of the account receivables. But that's not all also. If you were to go to even the Ghana National Gas Company, if you were to go to the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, for instance, GNPC, and talks about, they note that claims of 29,578,000 disbursed from the petroleum holding funds were not captured as either equity financing cost level A or net carried and participating interest level B, and they advised management to ensure these claims on the petroleum holding fund are appropriately categorized in compliance with the provisions of the Act. And they also note that the corporation had long overdue receivables of 215,775,294, but there were no payment plans for repayment by government agencies, and so they recommend that there should be an increased effort to actually collect these amounts. Now, when it gets to, yes, I think that will be it for now.
All right. Yeah, so Winston, you talked about the locked up funds.
Yes.
You mentioned the NLA. The NLA is not the only institution. The report also talks about Ghana Gas that invested about 10 million in 2018. It matured in February 2019. They have since not been able to recover the principal and the interest. There's also the issue of the University of Ghana, which also has some investment locked up. About a little over 8 million of investments locked up that they have not been able to retrieve. So a number of the institutions mentioned who have investments locked up that they have not been able to retrieve. And then you mentioned the unearned salary.
Yeah.
Just to also draw your attention that the University of Ghana also recorded a similar incident. They paid unearned salary amounting to some 102,841.62. And then there was also one Miss Ellen Sewa Domako of the Department of Occupational Therapy, who was granted a study leave with pay amounting to 270,828.10 from 2017 to 2020 to pursue a PhD in the UK. She did, but did not return to post after completion of the course. The recommendation is for management to recover these amounts with interest from her and pay same to the Auditor General's recoveries account. So there was also, I discovered also a number of institutions where income taxes, they withheld income tax but did not pay. Ghana Cylinder, for instance, did not pay income taxes withheld from employees' salaries, no tier 1, no tier 2 contributions.
Ghana Cylinder Manufacturing Company.
Ghana Cylinder. And then Bost, they discovered some abandoned pipelines. They also leased acres of land without signed agreements or payment. They paid for some earthing devices costing over 1.5 million. They've paid for it, but it has not been delivered. Yeah. So a lot of the I also noted, Ministry of Energy seemed to have recorded the highest figure in terms of irregularities. The head office, and this is something that I have been passionate about since I discovered, the ECG head office, according to the report, buys from non-VAT registered entities. And you'd see that it's not just ECG. And my worry is that these are state institutions, because they tell all of us, all Ghanaians, to if you are selling, issue VAT registered certificates. So why will state institutions buy from places where they are not issued VAT certificate? And this will also mean that they are not paying taxes.
Great. Lots of questions to ask. And so when we return after these messages, we'll be joined by Professor Samuel Antwi, who's Dean of the Graduate School of the University of Professional Studies, Accra. He's also an expert in auditing. He'll be sharing his thoughts, first of all, then we'll get into the specifics, starting from the intergovernmental agency debts, and also why is the Auditor General not surcharging the principal spending officers. We'll be right back after these messages.
Your morning radio.
All right. Professor Samuel Antwi joins us now to talk about the Auditor General's report. He's the Dean of UPSA's Graduate School. He's also an expert in auditing. Prof, good morning to you, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Kwajo. Good morning, Winston, Mama V, and all our listeners.
Yes.
I'm happy to join the conversation this morning.
Wonderful. So, Prof, maybe we'll start with the big picture. I mean, 2022's report is signaling a reduction in the total amount of irregularities, or total value of irregularities, from some 17 odd billion to something around 15 billion. 99.3% of it recoverable. But still, we are seeing some of the usual suspects, some of the same old things happening again. What are your general views on this report?
Thank you, Kwajo. This is just a portion of the work of the Auditor General. We are not looking at MMDAs. We are yet to look at MDAs. We are yet to look at special audits. And it is the same old story we continue to recycle. If this one alone is 15 billion, excluding audit report from MMDAs, MDAs, special audit. If you convert this one by 12 Ghana cedi into dollars, if we manage our affairs well, I don't think we needed to go to IMF to get $3 billion. The major problem is that every year when the Auditor General's report comes, nothing happened to principal spending officers that are mentioned in the reports. The Public Financial Management Act at 921 is clear on the matter. Give infractions and sanctions against principal spending officers in various covered entities when they go against the law. The only thing that happens is that when these things are brought to the fore, they are going to take them to the Public Accounts Committee. They ask them some few questions. The CEOs and the Director Generals and the big people will not carry their bag, go back to their offices and commit the same errors. I think we have to get serious as a country. Do you know how many hospitals 15 billion can build? People are dying because we don't have just ordinary hospital beds for them. And every year, we just come, this one 14 billion, this one 15 billion. In fact, if you check the trajectory from 2018 to 2022, 2018, total irregularities was 3 billion, 2019, 5 billion, 2020, 12 billion, 2021, 17 billion. Do you know what is happening? The trend is going up. If somebody steals money and nothing is done to him last year, I want to also go and steal because I know that nothing will happen to me. I think as a country, we need to put our acts together and get the rod and whip the people in line who are committing these irregularities. At least, if we get serious for a particular year, you see that the following year, all these outstanding loans, recoverables, cash irregularities, payroll irregularities, etc., procurement irregularities will go down significantly. Okay. We are not doing much to ourselves at all.
Now, Prof, you talk about, and you ended on loans and everything. So we know, for instance, that when it gets to a lot of these, state institutions or public corporations within the energy sector, and the Auditor General makes reference to the fact that ECG, for instance, owes Bui Power Authority $500 million. Ghana National Gas Company is also owed about $400 million. Now, these are monies that are owed and can always be gotten. But the reality is, as government-to-government institutions or public corporations, is there any hope that we'll get these monies?
All right, so first and foremost, the institutions you have mentioned, according to the Public Financial Management Act, are government business entities, what we normally call the SOE.
Yeah.
The SOEs are in the business space running business. They can be sued and they can sue. So there is some level of autonomy for them. Now, if ECG should go and buy power from we or any other SOE and refuses to pay, is ECG not selling power to customers? Are they not doing business? Are they not in the business space? You see, these are the things we do, and these SOEs feel that they are government entities. Go and look at how they are mismanaging the little resources they receive. They will refuse to pay BRI because they know that they are state-owned enterprise, and that when worst come to worst, we are going to use the taxpayers' money to bail them out. The CEO is still sitting there. The chief operating officer is still sitting there. The chief financial officer is still sitting there. They're still keeping their job, riding in their four wheels, going and coming and taking their fast salaries. I think we are not doing this country any good. Look, if you give you an SOE and you are unable to pay your bills as and when they fall due, the law is clear on the matter. We should surcharge you. You should lose your job and take you to court. It is not for fun that government establish businesses and put you as a CEO to run that kind of business. I think the country should get serious, because these are organizations who are going to put money hoping that UCG, we, and GMPC at the end of the period, they will bring returns on our investment. They are not bringing returns on our investment. They are bringing huge losses and we are there looking at them. And the taxpayer is being burdened. This year alone, we have increased taxes on 3 major items. The income taxes have been, the bandwidth has been increased from 30% to 35%. Companies are supposed to pay growth and sustainability levy additional 5% before they pay their corporate taxes. VAT rate has been increased. They collect all this money, and few people just go and waste the money year on year basis. I think we are not getting serious at all as a country.
Let me ask you, Prof. I mean, it appears, in fact, no, the evidence is clear that surcharging or where necessary disallowing seem to be difficult for auditor generals to do. It doesn't seem to be the default action where the law, even where the law says that's what must happen. Can you tell us, I mean, you're an auditor, so maybe you can educate us. What are the real impediments, the real difficulties that make auditors not want to exercise their legally given right to surcharge so that the state can recover some of these monies?
I think it's lack of political will on the part of the Auditor General. The law has given you power. What again are you waiting for? When Mr. Domlego was there, he didn't see surcharge people. So the Auditor General should look at, for example, on earned salaries. If you look at the report, there's a lot of unearned salaries across public institutions. Look, the law says that if you are being paid by Control and Accountant General, before the staff is paid, you validate the staff that Mr. A or Mr. B is at work and has been coming to work for this month. Therefore, pay him. If you are a subvented organization, you pay the salaries yourself. So you know that Mr. A or Mr. B was at post and therefore are paid him. In both scenarios, the head of entities called in the Public and Financial Management Act principal spending officers validate this staff, pay them, and later the Auditor General will come and see that this guy is just at post for the last 3, 4, 5 months. Sometimes the whole year the guy has not come to work and has been collecting salary. What should the Auditor General do? The law is clear. Surcharge the principal spending officer who refused to do his work. The Auditor General will now write that he is recommending that they should recover the money from somebody we cannot even locate. Probably look at the one you mentioned. The guy is in the UK from University of Ghana. We have given him steadily. He went, collected salary for how long God knows. 3 years. And then he has refused to come. And the Vice Chancellor is there. We are not surcharging him to go and bring the money because there are things you should have done. There are guarantors. In fact, you should have used his provident fund, etc., as a security against if he refuses to come, use that money to pay for it. And if the Vice Chancellor refuses to do all of that and his finance officer, then the Auditor General should settle them and collect the money from them. I think head of entities should get serious in looking at securing government money. We are in very difficult times as a country. And all this money, government of Ghana is going to reduce expenditure by 20 billion, reference to the mid-year budget review. We don't know which places is going to cut the cost. It can be by buying something for a school or for a hospital. Somebody is there collecting salary for no work done and nothing happens. The Auditor General should put his acts together and start surcharging head of entities to pay this money back to government check.
Great. Now, Prof, I mean, let's look at another thing. We've seen instances where state institutions buy from entities or companies that do not charge VAT. We've seen state institutions that even withhold income tax and do not pay to, the Ghana Revenue Authority. What do you make of this?
Listen, I've always said that the Ghanaian is fundamentally corrupt. The Public Financial Management Act is clear on a institution where you can buy from. There's a registered VAT supplier. Why did you refuse to buy from the registered VAT supplier and go and buy from an unregistered supplier? And then the Auditor General come and see it, and you are there. Look, the component of VAT, if you have bought from a VAT registered supplier, we should charge the person who went to buy the goods from the registered VAT supplier. Let's be deducting this money from their salary. Please, you think that if you have deducted this money from their salary, next time you will go and buy from an unregistered VAT supplier. Because nothing happens to him, the following year he will still go and procure from an unregistered VAT supplier. How can you withhold tax? I think GRA2 should be looking into this matter. Move around and do their tax audit. How can you withhold tax from a supplier and refuse to transfer same to GRA? These are revenue sources government is looking for so that we can sort out our shortfalls in our budget.
Okay.
And the whole public sector institution, you withhold tax from a supplier and you spend the tax money. Oh no.
So, Prof, I know that you are an auditor, and based on all that you're telling us, clearly these are things you would flag, and these are, recommendations that you would make. Why is it the case that others who are auditing, including the Auditor General, are not doing these?
Let's understand the recent history of the Office of the Auditor General. You see, they interface a lot with politicians and powers that be. When the Auditor General tries to act according to some aspect of the law, reference to recent times, of course, the Auditor General is appointed by the president.
And he has a security of tenure.
You are getting too hard on them, you can lose your job.
He has a security of tenure. I mean, so if he's doing the right
Yeah,
thing,
you have security of tenure, but they can make your life a little bit difficult as an Auditor General. But of course, look, the Auditor General need to call the bluff of the politician, and once it's covered by the law, do what the law says you should do. Period. This is the only way we can move forward. Winston.
Okay.
Prof, you also realize that there are a significant number of the institutions who also have locked up funds. So NLA has about 2.6 billion million locked up investments. You have the Ghana Gas also having about 10 million investment locked up. GIJ, the Ghana Institute of Journalism, also has a little over 9 million with NDK Financial Services, and according to the report, they've only been able to recover 100,000 Ghana cedis. Who do we surcharge anyone for this? How do we get these monies back?
The first thing is that the principal spending officers of these institutions had a right to invest excess cash or excess money so that they can get some return. One, these institutions that had locked up their financial resources were registered and regulated by the BOG. Based on that, citizens, including public sector institutions, send their money there. I think that the BOG itself, maybe another time you come and talk about them, should be interested in how much of government money has been locked up in all these investment companies across the country. Now, there were arrangements to pay investors lockup fund. I think the BOJ itself should have given guidelines that if the institution had a government institution lockup funds in it, they should be interested to see how they can quickly recover it. There are receivers selling assets of those companies that are defunct now. They should have prioritized government institutions that are local funds there, because these institutions were properly registered and regulated, and public sector institutions went to put their money there. In this scenario, you cannot surcharge the principal spending officer for trying to get returns on an investment from a registered and a recognized financial institution. So I think that BOD should look at it well and catalog all public sector institutions that are local funds in these institutions. As the receivers do their work, they should prioritize the public sector institutions' money that have been locked up. Probably pay them first. Of course, the individuals should say that how are we going to survive? Exactly. But these are some of the things that will help ease the pressure on our economy, and everybody can be fine. So this is a suggestion I want to make on the lockup fund.
All right. Now, if you just joined us, wherever you are, we're thankful for your company. In Kumasi, those of you tuned into Love 99.5 FM, those in the Central Region listening to ATL FM, we're very grateful to you all. Now, our guest is Professor Samuel Antwi. He's a Dean of UPSA Graduate School. He's an auditing expert. He's helping us understand why we keep seeing the same old story every year in the Auditor General's report. Now, Prof, this year, when it came to the cash irregularities, the biggest culprit was Ghana Water Company, where there was about 14.47 million Ghana cedis worth of unrecovered staff advances paid by the company. Now, these things tend to be quite common. You see them every year. Companies giving cash to their staff. I don't know. I mean, those of us in the private sector, that seems an alien practice to us. What exactly happens in the public sector that makes this such a norm? What are the... Explain this practice to us, please.
All right, so the Public Financial Management Act discusses advances to staff and says that you see, sometimes the public sector workers negotiate on their conditions of service, where they can get car loans, motor vehicle loans, bicycle loans, motorcycle loans, fridge, other things. So it's part of their conditions of service. But the Public Financial Management Act says that if you're a principal spending officer, before you give a loan to a staff, one, make sure that staff doesn't have a lot of loans, i.e. from banks, etc., that will make the person unable to pay the loan you intend to advance to the staff. So, as part of his net pay, 60% should be available to him for consumption. And then 40% can go into loans. So, the finance director has a responsibility to do that. That is one. Two, you are the person giving the salary to the staff. How can you come back and tell us that you are unable to collect the agreed repayment structure from the staff member when every month you are paying him his salary? I think that the CEO should be fair at. The PFM Act says that, in fact, if you are pick a loan, and even if you default in a month, you should not be entitled to any loan again. And they should take steps to use your provident fund or let's say credit union money, whatever money you have, to set staff loans.
Right.
Why is the Ghana Water Company not doing that? And they keep advancing loans to staff and they are defaulting the payment. But this same staff, every month, they go to the bank happily and collect their salary. I think something is all right. And it's against the Public Financial Management Act.
Do you see some corruption possibility, the possibility of corruption here? Is this being done in some way for somebody's private gain?
Let me tell you an interesting story. Not too distant history. There was a public sector institution. It's a bank. I'm sure you may know. I don't want to mention the bank.
Right.
That gave a loan, almost about 10 million Ghana cedis to board members. And in 6 months, wrote off that loan as bad debt. You see, in this country, people are just fundamentally corrupt. Let's get the list of advances you are giving to staff members. You will see huge amount going to management members of the Ghana Water Company, including the director of finance himself. So all of them are refusing to pay. You know what they are trying to do? If you read the Auditor General's report, they are even refusing to do the aging analysis of the debt. So they will not pay. They are not taking any steps to recover the loans from the staff. One day that staff will go on retirement or he will resign, and all that they will do is to write these monies off. If you like, let's get the details. And you see top management members of Ghana Water Company whose names are there collecting huge sums of money and they are not paying. But every month they prepare the payroll and go to bank and pay all this stuff. I think that the board of Ghana Water Company should be interested in this matter. And it's an audit report. So if you check the Auditor General's report, it says that they should take steps to see how they intend to recover this money. Of course, if the private sector and you Winston or Kojo, you owe Joy FM, they advance a loan to you and you have refused to pay. Would they be happily paying your salary every month? I'm sure a particular month you get zero money because they will use the money, your salary, to offset the advances you have collected. And henceforth, you are not supposed to get any staff advances again from the company. Public sector managers should understand that we are using the taxpayers' money to run those SOEs. They should get serious, recover the staff advances. There are many areas they can look at to recover this money. Why are they not recovering it? I'm sure they themselves are culprits in terms of the non-payment of staff advances.
You know, I think that we should probably make it clear that this is only the beginning of a series of conversations we'll be having about the Auditor General's report. And what a great start we've had with Professor Samuel Antwi, Dean of UPSA Graduate School. We've certainly started to dig our teeth into the important issues that arise from this report. Prof, thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
Thank you, Kwajo. Thank you, Winston, and thank you, Mama. I'm honored to be on your show this morning.
Yeah.
And I hope that subsequently we will look at some other issues in the report. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
No doubt, Prof. Thank you. The honor is ours. You'll be hearing more from Prof as we continue our series on the Auditor General's report. I think I should probably just mention very quickly that Professor Kofi Abuchi, also of UPSA, states quite clearly that the only document that, without being investigated, scrutinized, or verified, rises to the standard of evidence in criminal cases, and by the way, that standard is very high. The only document that rises to that standard is the Auditor General's report. So we should be seeing institutions like YOCO, the police, even the Attorney General's office, jumping onto some of these things to look into them further if there is a suggestion that something has been done that looks criminal. We'll leave it at that. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more on the Super Morning Show.
Your morning radio.
A few of you sending your tweets through on this very important topic of the Auditor General's report. Let me read one tweet before we continue. Eddie Quainer says, the Auditor General's report, which is the subject of conversation, has exposed severe flaws and shortcomings in the management of public institutions over time. Parliament is failing to uphold its principle of responsibility for oversight.
And at CBO editor says, is it not shameful that we pay the Auditor General full salary and he does only one aspect of the work? He gives reports and does not surcharge according to law. Shouldn't he also be surcharged? And, no, but you see, I mean, it's a very important point that at CBO editor makes, that the Auditor General is consistently reminding everybody, oh, recoveries. And like Professor Antwi said, if you are a principal spending officer who is expected to validate staff before they are paid, and you did not do that, by virtue of your inability to validate them or refusal to do them, the state has lost money. So you should pay for it. The next time you validate everybody. Because if you are asked to pay for that money, the next time you will not want to be the one paying. You will look for that person.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. So this whole idea, for instance, look, if you say, oh, I did it, you didn't do it, you have to pay for it. Okay, so those who are getting allowances that they didn't deserve, you have to pay for it. Okay? And so you, the person, should get the money or you are surcharged. If you don't go and look for the money, you will pay it yourself. I tell you, nobody would let anybody spend his money. Or nobody would want to lose his money because somebody is, benefited from, some inaction or refusal to act.
So these irregularities, right? That's like something that a private organization will not tolerate. We've talked about how people in the private sector are the same people who end up in public sector, and then there are no changes. I mean, like, why can't we run whichever entity as though that entity was like a private institution? Why can't we help Ghana? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, you're very right. But the point really, I think I'll share that article with you. You lawyers have a saying that you're a good lawyer doesn't mean you become a good judge. That you're a good lawyer doesn't necessarily mean you become a good judge. That you're a great player doesn't mean you become a good coach. Now, the point is this. That system within the public service or public sector must be changed before people start going in there. And if you have one person from the private sector, so you send Mama Vio Uswabaji, you send Kojo Yankson in there, okay? By the time Kojo Yankson is, stays there for 2 years, he's like them, because the system is such that one person would find it very difficult to change that system,
or to even just do the right thing quietly.
And over a period,
It's
the person
hard.
joins them. It would only take somebody who knows the system very well, who will start by allowing the system to continue and begin to make changes gradually, which they may not even identify. So over time, over a period, they become comfortable and they realize that, oh, okay, we could do things here and there. Or introduce other genuine avenues of making revenue.
What I can understand, though, Winston Kojo, so the ministries can do these things, but how about the educational institutions? You talk about University of Ghana, for instance, and all of them, I mean, they've been cited for different irregularities. Where somebody goes on leave, for instance, they say, well, or you're leaving the organization, and they say, give notice. In lieu, you forfeit some sort of payment, and they don't do it. I mean, and if you were HR in a private organization, you would never forget. It is something that you do, but you are an educational institution.
Yeah.
Why can't you just practice what you teach in the classroom?
It's interesting. I mean, I grew up on a university campus, and I was surrounded by all these experts on every topic in the world. Okay, so I have always thought, just like you, that the one place where everything should be done right is a university. But you have universities, several of them, investing money in some of these institutions, financial institutions, where we were being warned for years that their returns are too good to be true. But universities invested with them. Universities. I mean, are you saying that the people who we call on the phone to educate us on these topics, the ones who were warning us of the unrealistic returns that some of these institutions, I mean, these institutions didn't have any access to them for them to advise them not to go and put their money there?
Well, could you sometimes also, the other issue is that some of these institutions were giving normal returns, except that they mismanaged them. And so if you didn't pay attention, and I make this point, if you didn't pay attention to their financials, and some of them actually don't release them. So, I mean, if you didn't pay attention, you wouldn't know. And yesterday I was making the point when I was emceeing the MTN Investor Connect event. So, I was doing a research on what influences investor decision making in Ghana.
Right.
And I realized that a lot of people are concerned about the financials of the companies. But I also realized that a lot of things should be about even the ESG, should be about, the ambition going forward. What about their governance structure? A lot of things they do. And so when MTN launched their ambition, when they updated us on the ambition 2025, what they intend to do, the gaps they had actually identified within the system, and how they think that they can actually fill this and expand and make more revenue for their shareholders and investors. I was pleased. Okay. Now, imagine an entity that doesn't do that. Could be making losses. You are not aware. So the next moment you go, and sometimes a lot of us think that, I've just put my money there, I'm okay. No, don't be okay. Go and find out how they're doing. If you don't take interest in how they're doing, and if that entity is not listed, for instance, okay, if they're listed, they're supposed to, share the information with their shareholders. Even though they are not listed, once you are investing in them also as a fund management company, you also become an investor and a shareholder in that particular fund. So in their annual general meetings, you should be there and they'll present their financials to you. The question is, how many people even show up? Myself, seated here, I've been invited several times to be at annual general meetings. I haven't shown up. Okay, I only go for the reports afterwards. At least I go for the reports. But the reality is that a lot of people don't care. And once you don't care, I'm sorry. So I can agree, you expect the experts in there to be concerned.
We have to start naming the so-called experts. Somebody can't go on leave and then you'll be paying overtime allowance.
Let me tell you
the
about...
person is on leave.